Hi guys, this is Mrs. Coxon. I decided instead of having, between 24 and 32 of you crowd around me to see me do a small, tiny little technique with my hands, I would try to make a video. It's my first time, so please don't judge. Showing you how to do this. Now, today we're doing hand sewing, as I'm sure the real me has already said, right? Good. So you're going to have thread, you're going to have a needle, a button, a piece of fabric, as well as a pair of scissors. Now for today, the scissors do not have to be fabric scissors. They can be paper cutting scissors, and I will probably, the real me will have probably described to you what that means. And if not, she's going to pause the video right now and do that. So hold on. And good. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take a piece of thread, and not too long because you don't want it to get twisted. You're going to take it, and the first stitch I'm going to show you is just the basic running stitch. Now when you're threading the needle, it can be difficult, and my eyes are getting bad, but let's see if I can do this on the first try, maybe. And we got it. Okay, so we pull it through, and I am going to be using a double piece of thread, which I assume I'm going to get you guys to do as well. It's easier for me to see. When you get to the end, you're going to make a loop, and you're going to knot it twice. And what that's going to do is make it stay, hopefully, on our fabric for a longer period of time. So like I said, I'm going to be demonstrating the three kinds of stitches that we're going to be learning today. See, I'm knotting it 3 times because I just sort of do it as many times as I think I can, try to get the knot as big as possible. See, I don't know if you can see that because I've never done this before, and hopefully it's working. So we take our needle. Remember, the running stitch is just basic in and out and in and out. So I'm going to do it here, and then I'm going to show it to you like this. So I take my thread, make sure my knot is at the bottom, and then go from the back, pull the thread through, good, and then literally I'm just going to go back down, and I can pull it out, and then back up relatively close by. The closer your stitches are, the tighter your thread is going to be. Now, the running stitch is done by weaving your needle in and out of the fabric, creating the look of a dashed line with short, evenly spaced openings. The running stitch is generally best done using the sewing machine, but every once in a while we need to know how to do this by hand. This technique will come in later for other things. And I think that'll be enough for my demonstration. So that is what the running stitch should look like. Now, the running stitch, like I said, is best done on the sewing machine, but it's good for gathering or quickly mending a seam that has ripped. So for example, you're at graduation next year and part of your suit or dress has ripped and you have to fix it quickly, you can just use this kind of stitch. Now, as you can see, I've just sort of done a little bit of a knot. It's not working the way I want it to. I'm trying really hard to get the knot to stay at the bottom there, and I can do that by holding thread close to the bottom of the fabric. There we go. And pulling. Once I've done that, I will cut the thread close to the knot, and then I will re-knot the thread because I'm going to use the same piece of thread to help me with the back stitch. Now the back stitch is probably the one with the most complicated picture, so I figured you definitely needed to see me demonstrate it, and it's just easier for me to do this on a video because if you are taking it home or you are looking at it, somewhere else, you can watch it as many times as you want. So the way that the back stitch works, and the back stitch creates a very strong seam. It's used on heavy or dense fabric and often used to repair a seam. Again, it doesn't make a stronger stitch than, say, your sewing machine, but again, so we start farther away than where I want to start, and then you go backwards. And we don't want to make the stitches too big because just because they're big doesn't mean they're better. Now, if I want a gap between the stitches, I'm going to go pretty far up like this. And then go backwards again. I'm going to do the same thing one more time. Go like this. Now if you look, there's not a huge difference between looking at the back stitch and looking at the running stitch. I don't know if you can see that. One thing you can do with the back stitch though is when you go backwards, you go through the previous stitch. See how I did that? And then I go here. And I go down. And then I would come up through the previous stitch. And then I would come down. And again, we'd knot it and tie it, but I'm not going to do that just because I want this to be relatively quick. The last stitch that I teach you, I will have taught you how to do, or will be teaching you how to do in this video that is not a button or creating your own personal tag, is the overcast stitch. Now the overcast stitch is done on the edge of your fabric. It can be used to finish cut edges on fabric that tend to ravel, or it can be used in a pinch to put two pieces of fabric together. Generally, it's just used to make the piece of the end of fabric not ravel, but it can also look very pretty. So we start at the edge of the fabric, not too far from the edge, and we go up and then we go over, and then we come up this way, and then we go over. Now the farther away your next stitch is from your last one is going to be the gap. If you want, it's very possible to do them very close together and then they can be almost beside each other, and you can use more thread and that would be very tight and look polished, etc., etc. Now this is almost similar to the way we do our tags. So when you finish this one, what you want to do is you're going to go to the back, you're going to go through the last stitch and you're going to tie a knot. And then you're going to do what I did before, where you tie a little knot, hopefully get it to near the bottom this time, and done. And cut. Now I'm going to, while I'm talking, I'm going to rethread my needle because I didn't give myself enough thread, because I never think ahead apparently. And we're going to thread our needle, and I'm going to show you how to do a button. Now for a button, you definitely want to use the double piece of thread. You want to use it where it's doubled and two pieces tied at the end. For our use, when we're sewing on buttons, generally they're probably going to be for monster eyes, which means we want them to sit flat against the fabric. But if you're sewing on a button to a piece of garment, you need to have a little bit of space in between the fabric and the button. So there is a different technique to do that than the one I'm going to show you here. I have information on that technique, and I might show it to you at some point, depending on how things go, just to show you what you would do to make it so that it's a button that you can close. If you're interested in that, again, I have a link to a page that shows you how to do that, or you can just Google how to attach a button and it would bring you right to the link. So I'm going to put my button here. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to the back of the fabric and come up through one of the holes like that. I'm going to go down through the hole across from it, and I'm going to do that 3 times to the same 2 holes. So that was 1, find my needle, so this is 2, and one more time. 3. Now you can do this more than 3 times if you want to. You can use thread that's been doubled twice. But once I'm done that, I'm going to move over to the other set of buttons. I'm going to go 1. I'm going to go 2. Sometimes you have to play around with it, finding the hole in the back because it's hiding, apparently. That's 2, and I'm going to do 1 more just to take it nice and secure. Ow, that was my finger. Be careful. Needles are sharp. You're not going to like cut your finger off with one, but you know, they can be sharp and you can prick your finger, and that's never fun. And there's 3. So once I'm done that, I'm going to go back to the other side of my, oh my, that looks gross. clearly I didn't do this right. I'm going to make a couple stitches that I'm sure are underneath the button. Hopefully yours will look neater than this. I'm going to have to do this video again. And then I'm going to go through that, what I just made, and I'm going to knot by going through there. And I'm going to cut it. And there I have attached a button. And if we're making monsters and you have button eyes, you want your eyes to be really secure. So the more you do, the better it will turn out. The last thing I'm going to show you how to do is probably the most complicated, and that would be how to do your personal mark. So I'm going to draw a G. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it does take me quite a while to do, especially when I'm using normal thread and not brain freeze, can't remember a word, not embroidery thread. There we go, that's what it is. So I'm going to thread my needle. I'm doing pretty good on this so far. If you have trouble threading your needle, you can wet the edge of the thread to make it easier, or if the thread has frayed, one thing you can do is put a tiny bit of, you can cut the end off and have a fresh end. It's always best to start with a fresh end when trying to thread a needle. So again, I'm going to knot the needle thread, make a few knots so that it's nice and tight and secure. You don't want it to come through the end of your fabric and fall apart, because if that happens, things will not go well for you or me or anyone, because we don't want our things to fall apart. Now, for my G, I make my little knot, and again, I start on the wrong side of my fabric because I don't want the knot to show on the front. And I'm going to literally be making little stitches going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth around this. So I go up and down, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience because each stitch is going to be right beside the previous one. And with this kind of thread, as you can see, they're tiny little stitches. So I've made one, and then I go here, right beside it, to here. Make sure you don't get your thread caught on things like that. And that is how you're going to do whatever shape you decide to be your personal tag. And you're going to just keep going and keep the thread close to each other. And this is the part that will take you the longest. And I'm completely failing at this. I don't know what it is I'm doing that's wrong. I've got a little piece of fabric showing here, or thread, and I don't know my words. And I don't really want to do this again, so I might just show you the one that has all the mistakes in it, because why not? But as you can see, I hope, there, see how the knots are coming close together? If you compare that to the G I have on my dragon, it'll be very similar. So, by the end of this period, or the beginning of period 4, you'll be handing me in a piece of fabric with the following things on it. A running stitch that goes from one end of the fabric to the other. A back stitch that goes from one end of the fabric to the other. An overcast stitch that goes over one side of the fabric. A button, and your personal symbol. That's it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask the real me. I'm assuming I'm pointing to her. I don't know. It's possible. It might not be. I don't even know if you can see me. Like my nails, I got them done. How amazing is that? So that's it for now. We'll see how this went, and enjoy your sewing.